What's up, dude? So I just got back from an Italian adventure where I had one of the very best lasagnas of my life called Nonna's Lasagna from a restaurant called Bucamario right in the heart of Florence. And given that they've been serving food since 1886, I think they've had some time to practice their lasagna. Today, I'm gonna do my very best to recreate that lasagna at home and hopefully do Italy proud in the process. Now let's go! Now the first thing we need to start right away is the ragu because it needs to cook for a long time in order to get really truly silky and soft and delicious and full of flavor. I'm gonna be grinding my own chuck roast because I'm a psycho, but if you don't wanna do that, just buy 80-20 ground beef. But if you are using a meat grinder, make sure you throw this attachment in the freezer about 30 minutes before you wanna use it. You want it to stay nice and ice cold. It helps preserve the structure of that meat. Slides right in. And then I'll simply just grind that through on medium speed, but we're not done yet. We're actually gonna use this same machine to process our veggies, which I saw in another lasagna video as I was researching for this on YouTube, and I thought, why not just kill two birds with one stone? And so without washing, I'll now just feed through my carrots and my onions. Celery can just off. I'm just sort of anti-celery when it comes to cooking it in sauces for extended periods of time. I still like it raw and pickled and stuff, but that's just the camp I'm in, so there you go. And as you can see, the meat grinder did a really good job of turning these carrots and onions into a sort of like really finely minced sofrito, although it doesn't have the celery, but this is so perfect because it's gonna literally melt into the sauce, which is exactly what I want. Now moving on, because lasagna has so many different components, I wanted to keep each one really simple, so starting with the ragu here, we're gonna just do a little bit of olive oil in this sort of large size Dutch oven. And then we're gonna start with our veg here, straight in. And I'm gonna hit that with a little bit of rosemary salt. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, it's just a herb and garlic seasoning we make on the channel. I'll put a link to the recipe and the video down in the description. Definitely you should learn how to make that one. It's incredible for the holidays. So over medium heat, we're just gonna sweat this down for about 8 minutes or so, just to sort of concentrate these flavors. Now while those vegetables sweat, let's talk sausage. And it's really important because this flavor is so important to the ragu and therefore so important to the lasagna in turn. And based on my research, Italians basically use a very mildly spiced pork sausage. It'll literally just have salt and pepper in most cases and maybe one other simple spice. What you don't want to do is use Italian sausage. The fennel in there and all those spices are just gonna take over too much. You don't want that overpowering your lasagna. Your best bet is gonna be like mild breakfast sausage, probably, that doesn't have any maple in it, of course. And so I ended up with these. I'm just gonna use them and see how it goes. It would also be easy just to buy a little bit of ground pork and use that as well. That will definitely do the trick. What I'm gonna do here is just take this sausage out of the case. We're just gonna sort of crumble it in with our sofrito next. Once the 8 minutes is up on your sofrito, we'll just begin breaking up sausage in here just by hand. It's all gonna break down over the long, slow cooking anyway, so you don't have to go too crazy with trying to get it small at this point. And then we're just gonna cook this down for about 5-6 more minutes with just the sausage and the sofrito before adding in all of our ground beef. What we're trying to do here is really just capture all these flavors together, get all the liquid together all in one pot. Now my normal cooking brain here would tell me to separate all these ingredients and like really brown off that beef separately in a pan before adding them together to extract more flavor from all the browning. Having said that, my whole goal with this lasagna is like silky, soft, tender bites that melt in your mouth. And so when you brown meat, yes, you're gonna get more flavor, but you're gonna lose that softness. And so for each component of the lasagna, we're going for ultimate tender bites, and that's how we're gonna make the bechamel, and that's how we're gonna make the pasta as well. It's gonna be very silky, very tender, very delicate. Or it's gonna suck, I don't know. If you want with this recipe, you could also skip the ground pork or the sausage and just put pancetta or put both, or just do beef. It's really up to you, but I would say the pork flavor in here is important. So if you want my 2 cents, definitely put some kind of pork product in here if you eat it. Whilst in Italy, I learned a few sayings. So now every time Marcus comes in late, I say, "Chi dorme non tira pesci." The one who sleeps doesn't catch a fish. Also, I'm not really good with languages, but the pronunciation I get. We were staying in a town called Calaganone in Sardinia, and I noticed they drop all the O's, the N's, some of the R's, other vowels. So it's not Calaganone, it's Calaganone, Calaganone, Calaganone. Now, after the beef's been in here for about 5-6 minutes, I'm just seeing all this beautiful juice coming out. And so what I wanna do before reducing this down further and getting rid of that juice is now add in the wine. And I'm actually using dry white wine here. I'll explain why in a second. And because I want this lasagna so light and tender, I'm definitely going for the more northern Italian Italian approach, which is by using white wine. Of course, people do whatever in Italy, but it's more common in the South that they would use red wine in a lasagna rather than white wine, or just in general. And so we're gonna cook this wine down for another 5 minutes or so until the juice is almost gone, but still there. We never wanna lose this juice that's in the bottom of the pot. We kinda wanna maintain this the whole time. And one of my other favorite things about Italians is the way they say the word okay. Once you hear it, it gets stuck in your brain forever. Okay, okay, okay. And the last thing that's going in is our tomato puree here. I just had whole San Marzano tomatoes that I just blended. And I don't want this to be too tomatoey, right? Usually I would put tomato paste and such, but this time I actually just want to go less tomato because I don't want this to be like deep red. I want it to look more meaty. And I think we're right on track because this looks pretty good. And then I'm just gonna top that off with just a little bit of water. And as you can see here, this is just a really good level of liquid to have. That level of sauciness is just perfect. All we need to do now is nothing, right? We need to leave this on a tiny little simmer, just barely bubbling away, like just the heat maybe a touch over low, and let it cook for 3 to 4 hours. You could probably get away with 90 minutes, 2 hours if you're in a hurry, but if you're in a hurry, why the are you making lasagna? So just let it cook, because the longer it cooks, the better it's gonna be, and 3 to 4 hours is gonna make it really silky, soft, and tender, which is the whole game plan for our lasagna. Now, before moving on, do we have any other lovers of fall in the house? It is my favorite season of the year. I just love cooking some comforting food, sipping on a warm drink, and staying inside and being nice and cozy. But there is one thing that's truly the cherry on top, and that's a pair of cozy slippers that your feet will literally thank you for. And that's where our sponsor, Bombas, comes in. Bombas makes premium slippers, socks, t-shirts, and underwear using high quality materials like merino wool and extra long staple cotton. And every single item is designed for comfort, durability, and all day wear. And their slippers truly make perfect gifts for the whole family. They have everybody covered because whether you need soft bottom house slippers for lounging, hard bottom ones to grab the mail, or slip-ons for everything in between, there's style for every occasion. And upon trying my new pair of gripper slippers, it was like my foot just entered this heavenly cloud. They were so comfortable. And not just that, but cleaning is an absolute breeze because you can simply just toss them in the laundry, which is a huge plus for me. And what I love most about Bombas is they have a real mission behind every purchase. Because for every item you purchase, they will donate one to homeless shelters with the top 3 most requested items of t-shirts, socks, and underwear. And Bombas now ships to over 200 countries, so you can enjoy comfort and give back no matter where you are. And new customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/ThatDudeCanCook and use code ThatDudeCanCook at checkout. Thank you, Bombas, for sponsoring this video, and thank you for what you do. Now back to the recipe. And now while your ragu is bubbling away, this is the perfect time to make your pasta dough and your bechamel. If you don't want to make pasta dough, just buy those curly little sheets. Now your basic ratio for pasta dough is 100 grams of 0-0 flour to 1 whole egg, or 50 to 55 grams of eggs per every 100 grams of flour you use. I'll put the recipe in ounces down in the description because I know everybody in America doesn't really work with grams. But if you want my 2 cents, spend $10 to $15 on one of these and never look back. If you want to recreate recipes and be really consistent and make it just how I do, you kind of need one of these, and it's a cheap tool, so why not get one? Link in description. So down to the gram here, that's 500 grams of flour, and that's 270 grams of beaten eggs. If you're using really large eggs, 5 may be enough. If they're smaller, you may need to crack a 6th one and use part of it to make that exact ratio, which is what I did. And so to make the dough, just lay down your flour and make a little crater in the middle before pouring in all your beaten eggs. Add a little pinch of salt, and then using a fork, we're just gonna begin to pull the flour into the egg, making sure we don't break the dam and let all this egg out. And once it's looking kind of pasty like this, I switch to a dough cutter and I just start bashing it all together first with this very simple tool. Also put a link for that in the description if you don't have one. And once you see it's at a point like this where you know you can work it with your hands, we're just gonna begin kneading this dough for about 5 to 10 minutes. It really depends how hard you need, but when you're done, it should look nice and smooth, and when you press into it with your finger, it should spring back. It shouldn't leave an indent, it should just sort of refill where you touched. At this point, all you need to do is pop it in a bowl, cover it with a towel, and let that rest for about 30 minutes. And now while that pasta rests, let's make the roux. Here I have 120 grams of both unsalted butter and flour, equal parts, so that's about 4.2 ounces. Looks about a little less than a cup to me. If you want to use the cup measurement, measurement, but honestly, please weigh stuff out. It'll be so much better. Now in a medium pot here, I'll just start by adding my unsalted butter. And once it's all melted down, just add in your flour. Give it a really good mix, and we're gonna start just cooking this roux off because we need to get rid of that raw flour taste. If you add the milk right away, you're gonna be left with this sort of uncooked taste, and that's an amateur move, and we don't train amateurs over here. And you're not an amateur, you're a pro because you're subscribed to this channel and you get all these free tips from a chef with 20 years of real-time restaurant experience for free. I mean, come on, why wouldn't you subscribe? Also subscribe to my gaming channel, link in the description. And you know, if you look into the world of roux, there are so many different stages of roux. The longer you cook it, the darker it gets. In this case, we're just making a blonde roux. We don't want a lot of color because we want to end up with a really nice white bechamel sauce. But for instance, say you're making gravy. Maybe you take this to a really nice golden brown color to sort of match the color of the stock you're putting in. Maybe for beef, even darker. There's even these special Cajun roux that are like black. That's what they use to make gumbo. And so previously, while making a bechamel sauce, I would always scald the milk first, meaning just bring it up to temperature till that skin forms on top, and then add it little by little to my roux. But I did so much research for this video, and I found one French 2 Michelin star chef who looked like he really knew what was going on with bechamel. So I'm gonna follow his instructions, and what I'm gonna do is add cold milk and not little by little, all at once. I'm gonna see if there's a difference here between the way I do it and this new way, but it's always fun to just get out of your usual way of thinking and try something new when you're cooking, right? It's just one of those fields. And after cooking this roux for just about 5 minutes over medium heat, I can really smell how this has changed. It doesn't smell like raw flour anymore. It's starting to smell like cookies baking or something like that. It has no color, right? Just barely any. This is what we want. And so now I'm gonna turn the heat up just a little, and I'm gonna add all of my cold milk all at once. This is 1.8 quarts. Guys, but all the recipes will be listed in the description under the video in both grams as well as the American way. So no worries, there's metric and imperial all at once. And now we're gonna switch to a whisk here, and I'm just gonna keep stirring this with the whisk, making sure I get in all those little nooks and crannies so nothing gets stuck to the bottom. And one important thing to know when you're making a bechamel is this needs to come to a boil before you see how thick it got. So you'd be thinking right now like this is never gonna work, but once you keep cooking it and it reaches a certain temperature, it will really thicken up quickly. And here, even after 5 minutes, I can just feel from moving my whisk through this how thick it is. And one easy way to tell if it's done is just to take a spoon, put it in, draw a line through. If that line holds really well, you know it's done. That's just perfect right now, and it feels really smooth, so I'm happy about this technique. But we are not done yet. As you've seen, there's been no seasoning at all in here, and that's what we need to do now. And so we're gonna start by adding little bits of salt. It takes a while to dissolve, so really you need to wait a few minutes before you get that proper judgment of how much salt you really put in. And also to contribute to the really soft, silky, light aspects of this lasagna, I'm just gonna do some white pepper instead of black. And of course, a little bit of nutmeg. Just feels wrong not to put it in here. And I actually like that flavor with the ragu. But be cautious with the nutmeg, right? It's powerful stuff. Definitely don't put too much at once. Give it a little taste. It's coming together. Definitely needs more salt still. And then I'll do a touch more pepper and nutmeg. If you try to get it right all in one go, you'll almost always fail. You know, it just takes little steps to get it up to where you want with the flavors and the seasoning. Oh, and by the way, as soon as that was thick to my liking, I just killed the heat while I added all those seasonings. There's no reason to leave it on. Give it another taste. Perfect, man. We don't want to go too crazy with the seasoning because our ragu has a lot of salt as well. So for me, that's just nice. And there's our beautiful bechamel. We want to get out most of it right away, but I'm going to leave about 20% in the pot. I'll tell you why in a sec. And then very important, take a little piece of cling film, saran wrap. And what we want to do is just have that touch the top of your bechamel, because if you don't, it's going to form this nasty skin, and then you'll have to kind of either try to remove it, which sucks, or mix it back in, and then you end up with lumps. The saran wrap makes the skin for it, so when you take it off, you're left with a nice smooth sauce. And with our remaining bechamel in the pot here, we're going to do the same thing with the cling film, just so it doesn't form a skin. We're saving this so when we plate the lasagna, we can put down like a little bed of the bechamel underneath just to have a little extra sauce, and it's also just gonna be nice for presentation. And now for my final review of that specific technique, awesome. I'm never making it another way again. Not only was it about 5 times easier, but it was very, very smooth and very, very nice. Why would you do it any other way? I'm never doing it another way. That's it, done, for life, done. And after the 30 minutes rest is up, we can go ahead and slice off a piece and go to roll it out. And I'm just using my KitchenAid stand mixer with a pasta attachment. You can roll it out by hand if you dare, but you'll never be this consistent. And I'm starting on the thickest setting, and I'm just taking a piece like so and just flattening out one end so it'll at least start going through the machine. And then I'll fold that piece in half and run it through again. And then I'm just gonna keep going down by one setting until I get all the way down to 2. So not all the way thin, but the one just above it. And now from here, I'm gonna sort of measure it out to the baking dish I'll be using. And then we can clean up these edges. And so here we have our nice little sheets. Now they're ready for blanching. And now the pasta sheets go into boiling water for just 30, 40 seconds. It's ever so lightly salted. I'm just gonna do about 2 at a time so they don't stick. And they will cook insanely fast. There we are, 40 seconds. And now straight into this ice water to stop that cooking process. Make sure they're submerged and they're not stuck. And you can get it out together in one piece. And we'll just repeat that process with all our sheets. And after just about 20 seconds in the water, we can just get these out. We don't want to leave them in here. And you shouldn't need any oil or anything because the water should just prevent them from sticking. They look fine. And here we are, my friends, after 3 hours. I added probably about a cup of water only during the cooking process because I just had the heat so low. This is absolutely done. Give it a taste for seasoning. The meat literally just falls apart in your mouth just the way I wanted it. So I really think the no sear is the way to go, especially for a lasagna. What we need to do now is just dump some of this out and cool it down for the lasagna. We don't want to be building it together while it's so hot. So there we are. Now we have more surface area. This will cool down a lot quicker. In fact, I'm going to blast it in my freezer for about 10 minutes. But if you have the time for it, you don't need to do that. Just leave it room temp for like an hour. All right, my friends, it's time to layer this up. And I'm going to start by buttering my dish. You could just use olive oil or oil too. Doesn't exactly have to be butter, but man, a little butter. Hey. Why not? I swear one of my favorite pastas is still just butter and salt. It's just so good. Okay, just a nice layer of butter, nothing too fancy. And in with our bechamel to start, and do a little layer of it. This is just at room temp right now, this bechamel, and it's just perfect for spreading. Again, really happy with that technique for the bechamel. I would just always do it like that from now on. A little more down here. And now we'll lay in our pasta sheet here. You know what? I might be able to get away with just one right here. And now more bechamel. Cover up my mistakes. It's lasagna. In the end, it always works. A little more, a little more. And now our ragu. Do about 3-4 big spoonfuls. We really want to be able to cut a piece without it being a total mess, right? So don't want it to be too sloppy, but also sloppy enough. And then of course, some Parmigiano Reggiano. Nice big layer of cheese over the ragu. That's going to bring a lot of good salt and umami. And then all we're gonna do is repeat this process, my friends. Another sheet, more bechamel, you get the idea. And we'll go for about, I don't know, 5 layers or so, maybe more. I don't want it to be overly thick, you know, I'm going for something like about 2 inches. And you get it, my friends. Just repeat this process until you have as many layers as you like. If you want to go to the top, go to the top. And now on this final layer here, I'm going to take a little bit of extra time to get all this bechamel in the nooks and crannies, and especially in the corners, which I'll show you here in a sec. Just get a little extra on the edges, and then I'll just take a little brush. What I'm basically trying to do is just seal it all in. And then, of course, one final layer of ragu. And I'm taking extra time here with this last little bit of bolognese because I'm not gonna spread that. I'm gonna leave it just like that. And then totally optional, but I've got a little ricotta in the fridge, and so I'm just gonna dot the top. And personally, I love ricotta. And one more final layer of Parmesan cheese. And my friends, it's ready for the oven. Got a little thicker than I liked, but hey, I'm not gonna be complaining. And I'll just drop that on a sheet pan, and we're gonna bake this uncovered for about 40 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And here she is all baked up, and now I highly suggest you let this rest for at least 30 minutes. Everything needs to settle in. It's way too hot right now. It's gonna be a mess if you try to slice it right away, and you're not gonna get a nice even looking slice. And I like to plate it up on a black plate with more bechamel on the bottom, and then even more ragu on top if you want. And there she is. Let's give it a taste with Marcus. All right, Marcus, here we go. You know what? That actually looks a lot like the one I had in Italy. Nice catch. Nice catch. Yeah. I think the little circle of bechamel on the bottom on the black plate with the bolognese sort of bleeding out into the white bechamel, to me this looks really cool. Big ol' fat bite. Feels really tender as you fork through it, right? Like goes right through. Cheers. Oh, whoa. It's a little lukewarm because we've been messing with the thumbnail forever. But damn, my biggest worry was the pasta would be a little tough, and it's not at all. It's absorbed all the flavors of the bechamel and the bolognese, or ragu, and it's just very tender. And then having that extra bechamel on the bottom and the extra ragu on top, I don't know, it just makes it even better.
This and a nice Italian glass of chocolate milk.
Man, those is food pairings.
The pasta is great in this. It's super tender, everything's balanced. Every time I've ever had lasagna, it's been a brick. This feels lighter than normal lasagna. Back home in the Northeast, everybody covers it in, you know, I don't know, 48 ounces of mozzarella per
That's
serving.
the thing, right?
So this doesn't even have mozzarella in
There's
it.
American lasagna, and then there's like more to what the Italians would do. And it is so much lighter. And that was the whole goal with this one. Make it.
Make it.
Thanks for watching today, my friend. If you're a fan of written recipes, definitely check out my Master in the Making ebook that will be linked down in the description. And if you want to keep learning today, here are 2 more Italian recipes from my channel. Both of them are absolute hits. Thanks for watching, and until next time, you know I love you and I'm out.